Is your magic meter running low? Well, we've got a cure for you. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePauli, and today on the show, we're taking a retro look back at the Walt Disney World Happy Easter Parade from the year 1990. As a kid growing up in Massachusetts, I wanted to devour as much Disney Parks content when I could while dreaming about my next Disney vacation. YouTube didn't exist back then, so it wasn't as easy as it is today. I remember sending away for those vacation planning VHS tapes just to relive the parks in my home. In any case, each year for Easter, I remember looking so forward to the televised Walt Disney World Happy Easter Parade. They haven't done it for many years now, but I still think about it whenever Easter rolls around. It seems to be this lost little secret that a lot of Disney fans don't know about. Included in this group of Disney fans is my friend Derek Lewis, so I decided to introduce him to this Easter tradition and see what he thought. We'll get to our thoughts on the 1990 Walt Disney World Happy Easter Parade 30 years after it originally aired, right after this. With Easter right around the corner, perhaps you're looking for some Easter stories to read to the children in your life. Why not find an Easter bedtime story over at audibletrial.com/DCTC? After all, Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to celebrity memoirs, news, business, and self-development. And there are plenty of Easter titles for the little ones. Audiobooks like The Easter Egg Hunt, Clifford's Happy Easter, How to Catch the Easter Bunny, and so many more. It's as easy as heading to audibletrial.com/DCTC and typing Easter in the search bar. You never know what you'll find. For all of you mystery lovers out there, I found a book called Easter Bunny Murder. Alrighty then, head over to audibletrial.com/DCTC to search for any and every audiobook you may desire. That's audibletrial.com/DCTC.
It's time to turn back the clock because nostalgia is king.
Derek, welcome back to the show. It's been a while, and I'm so happy to have you here.
Well, thank you, Jeff. Always a pleasure to be with you.
And I am especially happy because, of course, we're coming up to Easter, and, you know, there was this part of Disney Easter that was part of my childhood that a lot of people I talked to didn't do this or live it or whatever. And I believe you're in that camp because today we're going to talk about the Walt Disney World Happy Easter Parade, which was on television every year of my childhood. But I don't think you ever watched this. Am I correct?
So I don't think I've ever watched any of the Disney parades, like even the Christmas ones.
Oh, you don't watch the Christmas one?
No, I'm just not a big televised parade person. But the Easter ones, I didn't even know these existed.
Yeah, so these existed from 1984 to 1999. So for 16 years, basically my entire childhood, these were on TV on Easter morning. And it was, you know, very similar to what the Walt Disney World Happy Easter Parade is. It's kind of a big commercial, but it was definitely more parade focused. I've noticed in like the last 5 years or so, the Christmas parade anyway has kind of strayed away from the actual parade aspect. In fact, they renamed it for that very reason. It's not solely parade focused because, you know, that gets repetitive year after year. And I will say, having grown up watching these Easter parades, they were a bit repetitive year after year, but I loved them. I never missed them except for 1 year. And I actually think it's the year we're going to talk about today because, gosh, I remember, you know, Mom dragging us all to church on Easter morning, and that's usually when the parade was happening. So we'd have to record it. This was before DVR, you young people listening. And I think we recorded it wrong and we only caught like 2 minutes of it. And oh gosh, little Jeff was livid.
That is devastating.
Oh, it was devastating, yes. And I think that's the year, because the one that we watched, I have very solid memories of a lot of these, but the one that we watched is the year is 1990, so 30 years ago. That's the one that we watched, and I don't recall this one. So I was excited to watch it, saw some stuff I'd never seen before, and cannot wait to talk to you about it. Anything you want to mention before we just jump into it, this kind of scene by scene?
Well, I want to know why you picked this one in particular. Was it because you thought you had never seen it, or because it's the 30th anniversary?
I'm going to give you the God's honest answer. It's because when I looked on YouTube, this one was the best quality.
That makes sense, yeah. Thank God for YouTubers, and thank God for people who used their old camcorders in 1990.
The old VCR tapes on you. I always do wonder, I'm like, who spends the time to upload these things? In this case, actually, I will mention that if you want to watch this special we're about to talk about, you can just go to YouTube and type in Disney Easter Parade 1990. It should be the first option that pops up. And if it's not, Sam's Disney Diary is the person that posted this. So thank you, Sam's Disney Diary, for doing that. I have so many things burned to DVD that honestly I should probably upload to YouTube, but who has the time for that? Not me, but Sam does, thankfully. So, I love looking back at these things. So actually, it did work out nicely. So it was a good quality video on YouTube, also the 30th anniversary, and also one that I apparently don't have memories of. So it worked out kind of beautifully. But I love to look back at these because I'm always curious, like, what was it in 1990 that the Walt Disney Company was really hardcore pushing on the audience? What were they promoting? So it's like a time capsule in that sense. And I always love to see like what character costumes were around then too, because a lot of things from this time are now like rare characters. And you and I have actually done an episode of Disney Coast to Coast about rare characters we'd love to meet. So it's just fun.
I thought the same thing as I was watching, like, what attractions are really going to get promotion, what films, and then throughout I'd be like, oh, there's a costume of so-and-so. Haven't seen them in a long time at the parks.
Yeah, so it's really, really fun in that way. In 1990, let's face it, was also just a really interesting year for the Walt Disney Company. At that point, Michael Eisner had been around for about 6 years, but it was really, that was basically right when things started rolling, because 1989 was Little Mermaid, 88 was Roger Rabbit, and, which we'll talk about in the special, but before that, there really wasn't much. So they didn't have a ton of new, super successful stuff to pull from. So a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about is from way before 1990, which I also thought was super interesting. So let's just start at the top. We're going to go through this scene by scene. This is going to be awesome. And I hope you folks enjoyed this little Easter episode of Disney Coast to Coast. So we should start off by saying who the hosts were. Who are the two hosts of this special?
Well, there were three hosts.
Well, the two main hosts, and then there was the man on the street.
Okay, so Alan Thicke,
yes,
may he rest in peace, was one of the hosts. He was the one I knew.
Okay.
I have no idea. Go ahead.
No. I'm actually, you don't know who the other two people are?
I don't know who Joan Lunden is, apparently from Good Morning America?
Yes! Oh my gosh! God, I don't want to say considerably younger than me, but there's a bit of a generation gap between us, huh?
Well, I mean, I just wasn't into news, I guess.
Neither was I, but I do remember Joan Lunden was a staple on Good Morning America, and I certainly wasn't sitting there watching it, but my mom was. And yes, Joan Lunden was a staple on Good Morning America. Of course, Alan Thicke from Growing Pains, both of which were, I believe, ABC shows, and Disney's always had a really good relationship with ABC. Of course, they own them now. But and then the man on the street was Regis Philbin. First of all, I never in a million years did I think that Regis Philbin would outlive Alan Thicke, my lord.
Oh, yeah.
And Regis is one of the... he's a very annoying person to me.
Jeff, don't say it.
Do you like Regis?
I've always liked Regis Philbin. I thought he was so down to earth, so funny, so lively.
I feel the complete opposite. I think he is an egomaniac who, when he talks to people, talks to them like they're dirt. I get the complete opposite vibe from him.
It's funny that you say that, because I will say there were a few times he was, like you said, walking down Main Street, and I felt like some of the stories he was telling he had just made up. Like, he pointed to some random woman and was like, all of her cats are named after Disney characters, and the woman couldn't even hear what he was saying. And in my mind I thought, he just made up that fact.
He seems like a curmudgeon, and he always has to me, and it's really funny because I've really never, I don't know, anything you watch him on, he just always seems like agitated and like a grumpy old man. And my grandmother, God, years ago, she loved Regis. Oh my gosh, she loved Regis Philbin. And so she'd always get upset when, first Kathy Lee Gifford and then Kelly Ripa, whenever they would like razz on him on the show, she would get so angry and defensive of Regis. She's like, I do not like that Kathy Lee. She's being mean to Regis. And I was like, Regis is a jerk. And my grandmother would get so angry. It was so funny. But
well, like you said, Regis kind of took back seat to the other two hosts. Let's talk about Alan Thicke for a second, because he was in rare form during this entire special.
I think that's just what Alan Thicke was like. He was always like this host kind of guy. By the way, his talk show failed. His person. Do you remember? Well, I never saw it, but there was a show in Canada called Thick of the Night, and it's like one of the most infamous failed talk shows of all times. But yeah, no, he does have an interesting sense of humor, and I feel like him and Joan Lunden got along really well. And by the way, these three hosted a bunch of these through the years. Like, this wasn't their one and only year. They did it a ton, and I liked his weird sense of humor, kind of like super chill, laid back, relaxed, like, hey, this ain't nothing what I'm doing.
Yes, this is the vibe I got. So Joan and Regis came in with like a general script, like they knew everything that was going to happen in order. And Alan showed up the morning of and was like, "Oh, there's like some special today, right? Okay, yeah, let's go do it." So he was like making up stuff. He told some random story about his kid playing Captain Hook in the school play,
which I thought was great, actually.
Yeah, that was good. It was like he riffs pretty well. But I remember at the beginning he said, talking about the parade, he said, it's the biggest, most spectacular, fragilistic, and Joan like broke because I think she was not expecting him to say that. He was just funny to me, very quirky.
I won't disagree with you. It definitely felt like on a whim kind of stuff, but it works for him, and it's definitely not polished, but I actually think it's more impressive because it's not constantly reading a teleprompter, and it's just like living,
Yeah, no, it's endearing. Like, how can you not like Alan Thicke?
Better than Regis. I'm here on Main Street, USA. Look, this woman named her cats after the dwarfs. Oh, he drives me up the wall. Regis.
No.
Oh, God.
Fortunately, he wasn't in it that much.
That's true. He's only on the street, so that's good. So, right at the beginning, we get the Walt Disney World Honor Band. And I gotta be honest, I'm not sure. This was a massive marching band marching from the Cinderella Castle down Main Street, USA. I've never heard this term, the Walt Disney World Honor Band. I'm gonna assume it's a bunch of colleges and people from all different groups forming this massive band. I'd never heard of them before. Had you?
No, news to me. So your guess is as good as mine.
Okay, well, they are playing Before the Parade Passes By from
Hello, Dolly,
which you also hear at Walt Disney World on
Main Street, USA.
Right, perfect. So Hello, Dolly is kind of a little bit of a theme throughout this because it has that very like, put on your Sunday clothes kind of looking elegant on a Sunday afternoon, and also it ties into Disney very nicely. So that's how it starts, that's kind of the pre-show of this marching band. Then we jump to a commercial, and I just want to mention this real quickly because did you catch the sponsor of this this parade?
The two sponsors were Premier Cruise Lines.
Yeah, and what was their slogan?
Oh, I don't know.
The official cruise line of Walt Disney World.
Oh.
Which I was like, wow, times have changed. Like,
yeah, Disney said, thank you, we'll take over from here.
Isn't that amazing, though? And honestly, I'd never heard of Premier Cruise Line, and I Googled them, and I think it said it's still around. But I was like, wow, the official cruise line of Walt Disney World. How fast? And this was, 8 years? I think Disney Cruise Line launched in 1998, right?
I don't know, but that's close.
I think so. So let's just 8 years before that, and there's this whole other company. I found that fascinating. And you want to mention the other one?
The other sponsor was the Kissimmee St. Cloud Resort area, which is basically all of the non-Disney off-site resorts.
Yeah. So basically, the Good Neighbor Resorts is what they call them here at Disneyland.
Yeah, exactly. That was my first thought. Yeah.
Yeah. So
how funny.
I just thought the sponsors were quite funny. But so then we get to the official parade opening, and in this parade opening, we get a bunch of characters. Do you remember some of these characters? Because talk about just like throwbacks. Here we go.
In this first section, so like
Yeah.
Fantasia, Robin Hood. Yeah, the two characters who stood out to me the most, though, just because I never see them anymore, were Maid Marian from Robin Hood and Stromboli.
Yes, I don't think I've ever seen that character in person in a park. Yeah.
No, Jiminy Cricket, Pinocchio, Geppetto. We've seen all of them.
Yeah, but it's an interesting segment because we got Fantasia, Pinocchio, Robin Hood, and Peter Pan. The newest of those was Robin Hood, and that's from 1973 in a 1990 parade. So like I was saying, they didn't have modern classics to pull from so much other than the few I mentioned. So it's just crazy to think that, that whole first segment, 1973 was the closest we were getting to modern times.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Earlier when you said that, I thought, well, even parades today have Pinocchio and
Oh, absolutely.
Snow White.
Yeah.
But now that you say that, I mean, the most recent movies, some of them would have included like Great Mouse Detective, Oliver and Company.
They just weren't hits.
80s, but none of those characters are featured at all.
Because they weren't hits, they weren't classics, and that's what's so interesting to me. Even still, obviously we got Frozen and Moana and stuff today, which is modern classics. But even if we think about like Ariel and Aladdin and all them, like they're old at this point, yet still used in parades today. It was just interesting because we definitely have a much more of a mix today. They certainly don't forget their historic past of hits, but it was just interesting to me. The most modern things they had in this parade actually is coming up next. Right after that opening, we had Roger Rabbit. So, of course, that's 1988. Roger Rabbit was huge at this time. Do you even remember? You probably don't, but you may know this. Way back in the day, when Disney-MGM Studios opened, Roger Rabbit was supposed to be like the icon of that park, more so than Mickey Mouse, which I find interesting.
Yeah, for sure. There were 2 or 3 rides even that were all drawn out, had concept art and everything, but then ultimately never came to be.
Yeah, that's too bad. I've talked to numerous people who were working on the Roger Rabbit sequel and attractions for the parks and stuff. I'm like, this could have been something good. It was just the Disney and Spielberg, not getting along sort of thing. Maybe one of these days.
Maybe. This was a no-brainer though, because you have a rabbit, it's Easter, he's brand new, his movie's brand new, he's singing Let's All Do the Hop. Like, come on.
Yeah, and a giant Easter egg float, which some of these floats real interesting. It is, to me, what I found really interesting, and don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed this, and I loved them growing up. But today, I feel like when they put these parades on TV, like they're better than what you would get in person, because they'll, have you ever seen, you've seen clips, right, where like they'll have giant balloons and stuff, or confetti where there isn't normally. Like this, it's always plussed for the television production. Whereas this, I kind of felt like, was kind of a scaled down, like, okay, we don't normally do an Easter parade, but let's throw together some floats from wherever we can find them, and we'll throw an Easter egg on some of them, and we'll just call it an Easter parade. Like, it didn't feel as wholly produced as what we get today for the TV specials.
I think that's fair. The only area I disagree with that in is the costumes. Like, the number of performers and costumes in this parade was to a much larger scale than what you'd see on a typical day.
Yes, in some cases, but in some other cases, which we'll get to, I did feel like those costumes don't really fit. Did they just pull them from somewhere else? And I'll mention what I'm talking about. So it is... Okay. It's interesting. But in any case, so Roger Rabbit's there. I did love, these parades are a good use of promotion. Did you hear what they promoted for Roger Rabbit? Because I found this very interesting.
Yes, I did, which is why I sent you the text I sent you today.
Oh, great. Okay, so they were promoting Roller Coaster Rabbit, which was supposed to be a Roger Rabbit short before Dick Tracy. And yeah, I actually thought of that when I was watching. I was thinking of your text because you texted me. Look, you were looking for Dick Tracy on Disney Plus, right?
The special mentioned Dick Tracy. I remembered. You know what? Jeff likes Dick Tracy. I've never seen it. I'll just pull it up on Disney Plus and watch it. and it's not there.
That's a real shame. There's, just to go on a little tangent here, there's something going on with Disney Plus that I'm not too thrilled about. And there's this whole, is it appropriate? Is it family friendly enough? And I'm like, you guys have way too much content that isn't family friendly. Like, they're editing Marvel movies to make them appropriate for Disney Plus. I gotta tell you, if I were a Marvel fan, I would have zero interest in seeing it on Disney Plus if it was an edited version of the film. I'm so not for that at all. And I think that that's going to be a major downfall for Disney Plus if everything on there needs to be family friendly. If they want to have a kids version of it where like you can set some sort of lock if you're a parent, that's cool. But to say, oh, it's too adult, throw it to Hulu, I think is a horrible, horrible long-term plan for them. Tangent over.
No, it's a good point.
Anyway. Oh, then we go into something I couldn't even believe what I was seeing. This Minnie's Got a Crush on You music video.
Amazing.
I don't even get how this fits in with Easter. I was like, all of a sudden it's a Valentine's Day special?
No, well, she fit it. Here's how it works, Jeff. Here's how it fits in so seamlessly. Joan introduced the segment by saying, and you know what you think of when you think of springtime. And in that split second, I was like, I mean, like flowers? I don't know. And she said, romance. And I was like, nope, that would not have been my guess.
I'm hardly ever thinking about romance. So what? But that's a bad tie-in. I did think for a minute, because it kind of starts with Mickey and Minnie and Epcot. I was like, oh, okay, this is like a flower and garden promotion. That works. But then they went wherever. They were in Magic Kingdom and such. The best part, oh, please, do you have a favorite moment from this music video? Because I got to tell you, amazing.
They all melded together. It was the lyrics of the song that stood out to me.
Oh, that's
what was
interesting.
Your favorite part?
The slow motion running on the beaches of the Grand Floridian. Unbelievable. If you ever told me I thought I would see Mickey and Minnie running toward each other in slow motion on the beach of Grand Floridian and the Walt Disney World Happy Easter Parade, I would have said no. That doesn't sound right to me.
Well, the Grand Floridian, I believe, opened in '88 or around there, so they had to somehow get that new resort in here.
Well, of course, that's what they should have had that sponsor the parade instead of the Kissimmee nearby resorts.
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
No, the song Mickey, what are you gonna do? Because Minnie's got a crush on you.
Now, yeah, that wasn't like a spoof on anything, was it? That was just an original song, right?
If it was a spoof, it was over my head.
Okay. So that was something special, I gotta say. That was unexpected and random, and good for them, I guess. They fit it in there. But it definitely felt like a Valentine's Day special to me. Lovely stuff. We get back to the parade. It's Put On Your Sunday Clothes with Donald and Daisy. Now, we mentioned this earlier, of course. We're used to hearing this song on Main Street USA, but this is one of the segments where, if I remember, the costumes are like through the roof crazy beautiful.
Totally. And there are a ton of performers. This was even the section with the children dancers who knew all the choreography, and they're dressed up in their Sunday best.
Now, you never see that anymore, and I was wondering if that's like a child labor law thing, because I feel like these parades, much more so than the Christmas one, these definitely brought in like local performing groups, because it was a lot of people, way more than the typical amount of cast members that perform in the parks. So it was a lot of like local groups and stuff brought in. And yeah, they did have a lot of child performers. And this whole Put On Your Sunday Clothes segment is just so beautiful and kind of what I think of when I think of Easter. Not that I ever dress up that nice for Easter, but it's, I don't know, it's super. In fact, this is funny. So years ago, I was a kid. I went and saw a regional theater production. I believe it was the Colonial Chorus Players in Massachusetts. And it was a production of Hello, Dolly. And when they started performing Put On Your Sunday Clothes in this production of Hello, Dolly, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, that song from the Walt Disney World Happy Easter Parade.
Yeah, no, I believe that.
That's how I knew it, even more so than Main Street USA, because as a kid, I certainly, wasn't going to the parks nearly as often, didn't have the Main Street loop stuck in my mind, but this parade on TV, I watched over and over again, so this was
I like
in my
this
head.
section. It definitely screams like turn of the century, Hello Dolly, Main Street USA, and then because they're wearing pastels, like Easter is somehow tied into. And I really like the guys who are riding the really old time bicycles that has the giant wheel and then the itty bitty wheel right behind it. I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, and if I'm remembering correctly, that was a local group as well that they bring in. Those aren't like Disney performers. There's some group that collects those old bikes and like I guess go on bike trips together or something. But yeah, a lot of these are just local groups that they find, which I find really, really funny. Right behind them was the Barbershop Quartets, and we have Goofy in the Barbershop float. And it's basically a ton of Dapper Dans. But once again, local barbershop groups coming and performing. And, you know, it doesn't scream more Main Street USA. I don't know what it is with, like, I guess it's the way people dressed that they tie this all in with Easter. Because otherwise, it doesn't really scream Easter, but people just in their Sunday best makes you think of the 1920s, 1930s kind of dress.
That's a great point, because when we got to this section, my first thought was, oh, okay, they're going to do a section for every land in Magic Kingdom, starting with Main Street. But then they didn't do any of the other lands. So yeah, that is interesting. Why does this scream Easter?
That's an interesting thought. I wouldn't, just because I grew up with these and had seen what they were, I wouldn't have thought what you just thought. But that would have been cool if each land was represented, kind of like the opening day parade for Disneyland. Have you ever seen video of that?
Yes.
I've always felt they should bring that back, where like it's a parade based on the different lands. I would love to see that in one of the Disney parks. I think that would be cool. But
I think that'd be great too. That's why people love Remember Dreams Come True fireworks, because attractions were represented and not just films.
Remember Dreams Come True. So good. So good.
I know. Okay, so the barbershop section has one of my favorite quotes from Alan Thicke. There's like a recurring theme here where Alan Thicke just says something where I'm like, what? So I passed one of the things he said. At the very beginning of the parade, when they were all introducing it from Main Street, he said, "We're coming to you from the Walt Disney World Resort in downtown Florida."
That was weird.
What does that mean? I had to rewind it to make sure that's actually what he said.
Yeah, I remember hearing that and thinking that's a little strange, but yeah, apparently it's downtown Florida.
Yeah. Where in Florida do you live downtown?
He probably has a bet with somebody, a buddy of his, and he was just like, let's see how much random crap I can say on this and get away with.
Well, during the barbershop section, you probably remember this, he said, "Mark my words, one day you're going to hear that music updated. They're going to be the barber rappers."
Oh, yes.
It's like, no, I don't think so.
He had a weird sense of humor, for sure. I really liked Alan Thicke. I was very sad when he passed away literally like right down the street from where I am right now.
Oh, no. Yeah, that was a sad day.
That hockey rink. Anyway, that's a real upper. I'm so happy I brought that up. Speaking of Alan Thicke, though, let's talk about this next segment, which I gotta say, this surprised me because I had seen him host a ton of these parades. I'd never seen him do anything other than host them. So when they had him do a whole musical number at Disney-MGM Studios, which of course was a new park and they were trying to promote, this shocked me.
I guess I didn't think anything about it, but yeah, one of these pre-taped song and dance numbers.
Yeah, I don't think of him as a song and dance guy's thing. Like, I know he has musical talents. I know he wrote like a bunch of theme songs and stuff, but I don't know. Having him get up and sing and dance, I thought was interesting. But I do remember back when Disney-MGM Studios opened, they were very much interested in making this a real working studio and convincing people of that. It was one, but they really tried to push it. So I don't know if you caught at the beginning of this, that's a Disney-MGM Studios Presents The Dancing Guy. And there were a lot of those Disney-MGM Studios Presents short films, like the first couple years of that park being open. And so that was a fun little reminder throwback of those days.
Missed it.
Yeah, and during this, one fun thing is there's no Sunset Boulevard because that wouldn't come along for like another 4 years or so.
Right. They pretty much stuck to Chinese theater and the Hollywood Brown Derby.
Yeah, pretty much. And the archway as well that goes into the animation courtyard and a little bit of Hollywood Boulevard. Yeah, but, the random dance number in the middle of the show, I'm not going to complain. And it was kind of a mix of a bunch of classic songs. Didn't really tie into Easter at all. It was kind of more of a celebration of old Hollywood.
Yeah, and I guess I was trying to figure out why it went here. It was a medley of Irving Berlin songs, first of all. I noticed that there were 3 different songs. They were all Irving Berlin songs. But I thought maybe it kind of tied in with the time period. Like, you just saw turn of the century on Main Street, and then we went to, like, the 1920s Hollywood. That's a stretch, but that was the only thing I could think of.
Didn't Irving Berlin also write Holiday Inn? Isn't that one of his shows?
Yeah, because he wrote the song White Christmas, yeah.
Yeah, and in Holiday Inn... Wait a sec, did you say White Christmas is from Holiday Inn and not from White Christmas?
Yeah, the song was first heard in the movie Holiday Inn, and then they made the movie White Christmas, and it's in there too.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Huh. But I was going to say...
Sure that's true.
Well, I'm going to take your word for it, but I don't know.
Okay.
If it's wrong, write Derek. But the thing that I found kind of interesting just about the Holiday Inn thing was like, well, that was a show about all holidays, and I'm sure they hit Easter in that show, so that's the tie-in. It's the Irving Berlin Easter tie-in. Let's just go with that.
Yep,
boom.
That's it.
Done. Moving on. We get a drum and bugle corps up next in the parade, and then the Easter bonnet shop. Once again, I can't remember what song was accompanying the Easter bonnet shop, but
I don't know if I knew it.
Yeah, once again, just these grand, luxurious wardrobes. And it is interesting because I feel like these days, you know, we've mentioned a bunch of things here that are like very non-IP. You know, the hat shop, the barbershop quartet, the old bicycles, all this kind of turn of the century stuff. But we've gone a good chunk of time here without parade stuff that was advertising anything, which is very different from today.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, those sections had some Disney characters sprinkled in, but you're definitely right.
Yeah. So then after the Easter bonnet shop, what do we get? We get, the comment by Joan Lunden that was, I'm going to let you read this because this was, this was like a punch in the gut right now.
It was. And I feel like, not to get off the tangent, but I feel like this is happening with every single thing I watch. There will be something happen in the episode or the movie where I'm like, ooh, that's scary relevant right now.
Yeah.
But what Joan said, quote, was, "The Magic Kingdom has never, ever closed since the day it opened. It's always here and ready for the vacationers." I was like, oh.
Happy
Maybe
Easter.
in 1990 that was true.
Yeah, so she mentioned how the park opened in 1971, and in 1990 that was true, but it has been closed several times since. In 1999, it closed for Hurricane Floyd. In 2001, it closed for 9/11. In 2004, what a rough year. Hurricanes Charlie, Francis, and Jean closed. And then in 2016, Hurricane Matthew, and 2017, Hurricane Irma. So for those of you who say global warming isn't real, let's just look at what most of those years are. There's something going on in the atmosphere, is all I'll say. But 1971 to 1998, Joan Lunden was right. That's never closed. So
that's true.
But yeah, that was an odd statement. Just kind of a weird, random... What a weird thing to say, right? Like...
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the context of why she just, like, dropped that all of a sudden.
I don't think there really was one, because like there was like the Easter bonnet shop thing right before it. I don't see how that ties in. I don't know.
Yeah, no, Joan, come on. Keep
come on, Joan. Yeah. So then we hop into some Alice in Wonderland. Let's get some Disney IP back in there. Alice in Wonderland, of course, the tie-in with Easter is they always have the white rabbit around for Easter, so that works. Plus, you think spring, right? When you think Alice in Wonderland, you get the butterflies, you get the flowers. It's a kind of springy kind of feeling.
White rabbit and March hare.
Oh, I'm sorry. Bunnies. Excuse me. I am sorry. I apologize.
Just saying 2 bunnies, it's a no-brainer. Also, another Joan comment. I, again, had to rewind it and listen closely. She said, randomly, it was 1923 that Alice in Wonderland was released. No, it wasn't.
I think she was talking about the book. The book was released in the 1800s. Really?
Yeah.
What
it's like 150 years old. I don't know what she was saying, but she said it was 1923, Alice in Wonderland. I don't know if she was just like, no,
1923 is when Walt Disney started the studio.
I know this.
That's weird.
Listen back.
She screwed up.
I'm pretty sure she said that.
And you wonder why she's not on Good Morning America anymore. She left a very long time
Joan.
ago.
Come on, Joan.
So after that, now this is some of the more modern stuff we get. We get some MMC, the new Mickey Mouse Club, performing on Main Street USA, clearly lip syncing, and this was some really bad lip syncing. But this was very early on with MMC, the new Mickey Mouse Club. So those of you thinking, oh, Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake, JC Chazet, Kerry Russell, who am I missing? Christina Aguilera. No, they were there like the last 2 years of this run. This was like the first year of the cast, and it was nobody that went on to anything. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're all working, and a lot of them are working in the industry and doing well, but none of the superstars that came from that show. But, it's kind of fun. I loved MMC, the new Mickey Mouse Club. You probably didn't grow up with it at all, did you?
No, I mean, we didn't really have Disney Channel growing up. Otherwise, I probably would have liked it. But I was looking at all their faces, like trying to see a face I recognized, but nothing.
No, nobody, no Ryan. Is it Ryan? Who am I thinking of?
Gosling.
Ryan Gosling. Yeah, no, none of him or anything there. Like I said, like the show ran for like 7 years, and that the large majority of that famous group was only in like the last 2 seasons. So it's kind of funny. And I was listening, we recently had In Sync Week on Lance Bass's Popcast, where he interviewed each of the guys one day at a time, because we just celebrated the 20th anniversary of No Strings Attached. What? And they were talking about that whole MMC experience, and they're like, it was so funny because like none of us were famous. We were on a cable TV show, but not even basic cable. It was like a cable show that people had to pay extra for to get. So yeah, we were on TV, but nobody knew who we were. Like, so it was just kind of funny.
This is the most 90s section of the entire parade. They were wearing their parachute pants and their purples and blues.
Yeah, their wardrobe was something else. It was pretty unbelievable. Now, once again, Joan mentioned something that I was actually kind of bummed in this moment, because they mentioned something like, oh, so cool, but then they do nothing with it. It was just kind of like, just to get you excited. And they're like, yeah, the Muppets are going to come to Disney-MGM Studios. They're going to have all these cool things. There's going to be a Muppet parade down Hollywood Boulevard, which I don't ever remember personally, but maybe it existed. And I was like, oh, so cool. Let us see the Muppets. And then we get nothing from it. And this was not promoting Muppet Vision 3D. It would have been too early for that. So I think it was called Here Come the Muppets, where I believe where Voyage of the Little Mermaid has been for many, many years now. The Muppets had a show there. And they're just kind of like, mention it, but like as a throwaway. I'm like, come on.
I kind of thought that too. It's like when someone hands the news person an index card at the last minute, and they're like, I see here that Muppets are coming to Hollywood Studios with some sort of, like a parade, I guess. And moving on.
Yeah, exactly. And when we cut to commercial here, I do love this shot. We get a nice aerial overview, bird's eye shot of Disney-MGM Studios, where they point out I feel like everybody knows about this, but I think a lot of people don't, how it's like the biggest hidden Mickey anywhere, because when that park first opened, what do they call that area? Right in front of the Chinese Theater. I don't know if it's got a name, the Plaza or whatever it is, but if you look from above, it's a giant Mickey Mouse, and it's not just like 3 circles, like it's even the shape of his eyes and stuff, which is pretty cool. It still kind of exists, right? I know there's been a lot of construction.
I would be very surprised if it still existed, but it could, I guess.
Well, that right ear would still exist, because that was pretty much Echo Lake. And then that center section's still a circle. I don't know if the eyes would still be there. And I'm trying to remember what the circle was for the left ear. I'm not sure. But in any case, they show you a huge, cool, hidden Mickey at Disney-MGM Studios, which is fun.
Yeah.
When we get back from commercial, we jump into a Mary Poppins section of a parade, and a pretty good chunk of Mary Poppins in the parade, which is something you don't really see these days. I mean, we did kind of, for Soundsational, have a pretty nice Mary Poppins section, but they really did it up.
This reminded me of Soundsational, honestly, with the chimney sweeps dancing around with their sweeper flume things. I don't know what they're called, but that section reminded me of Soundsational.
Aren't they called brooms? I don't know.
But they're all flayed out.
I don't know. The sweep broom thingies. I love this float, the rooftop float.
Yeah. They're like climbing off of the chimney onto the street.
Yeah.
Or off the roof, yeah.
Oh, speaking of characters climbing on and off of floats, we'll get to that. Oh my God. You don't know what I'm talking about?
I don't.
There was a moment with a character who was like, oh gosh, Osho would be all over this today. This is horribly terrifying. We'll get to it. But I do want to point out with this Mary Poppins section, the little girl that invented cosplay? That little girl dressed as Mary Poppins?
Yes. So cute.
I do not remember people dressing up in costume as characters as a kid. Like, that was not a super normal occurrence in the parks when I was growing up. So when I saw this little girl, like, head to toe dressed as Mary Poppins, I was like, this is the first cosplayer ever. It's crazy.
Didn't even think about it. Yeah, because it's pretty common now.
Did you grow up with that? Did you see that a lot?
Not Disney. I mean, on Halloween.
Oh, yeah.
But that's about it.
Yeah, I'm talking about Disney cosplay, not Halloween.
Well, I didn't even go to the parks until I was in college, so.
Oh, okay. So, then we get to Buster Poindexter, who... Okay. Did you know who Buster Poindexter was?
I have no idea still who Buster Poindexter is or was, but they used his name a lot in this special.
Not only in this special, if you go back and watch the Disney-MGM Studios Grand Opening Celebration TV special, he's also featured in that. And this is a guy... I did a little bit of research because he is so over the top and so off-brand Disney that I'm like, what is he doing here? And I gotta be honest, the first thing I think of every time I see this guy is Scrooged. Have you ever seen that Christmas Carol adaptation, Scrooge, starring Bill Murray?
Nah, I haven't seen it.
Derek.
I know the film you're talking about. I just haven't seen it.
Why not?
I mean, I'm not a big Christmas movie person.
Oh, no. You need to see
You know what?
Scrooged.
I have a lot of extra time on my hands right now. I'll watch it.
Did you see, let's go on a tangent again. Did you see that, I think it was Hallmark did a Christmas movie weekend right at the beginning of all of this lockdown stuff?
Why not?
Yeah, you know how Lifetime and Hallmark, like, that's their bread and butter, is their original Christmas movies that are all the same exact script where a girl ends up on stage with a microphone in hand performing a song she'd never rehearsed before. That... They did a whole weekend of it, and I was just like, all right, cool. I know a lot of people that will tune into that in March, so good for them. Sure. But Scrooged is really good, and I'm not even a particularly big Bill Murray fan. But in any case, I think of this movie when I think of Buster Poindexter because he plays the ghost of Christmas Past in that film, and I'm just like, he's obviously like some musical guy because they always have him performing a musical number, and I was like, what kind of name is that? So I did some research, and apparently this is... I was happy to find out that this is a character, kind of like, you know, how Paul Rubens performed Pee Wee Herman or Cassandra Peterson performs Elvira. This is a character... It is the alter ego of New York Dolls frontman David Johansen. And New York Dolls was a band, which I'm not particularly familiar with. But this is like a character spin-off, not a real person. I was so happy to find that out because this guy is so over the top.
That makes so much more sense now. It's almost like if they put Miranda Sings in the Easter Parade today.
That's kind of so yes. Yes. Yes, I will. I'm not. Yes, you're right. But it's random. I don't quite understand why these are mixed up. I think they used one of his songs in the parade, which we'll get to. But I do want to mention this segment was shot at Disneyland Resort. So this is the only portion that was at Disneyland Resort versus Walt Disney World. And so they show him on some attractions, and they were very, very, very specific to make sure the attractions we saw him on were Disneyland specific. Because we see him on Splash Mountain with the characters, by the way, like Brer Fox and them ride the attraction with him, which was really funny. And this was 2 years before Walt Disney World ever got it.
I mean, it was brand new, right? Because it opened in 89, I think.
Yeah, let me think. It was... that sounds about right. Yeah, I think 89. It was either 89 or 9. It would have been 89 because I think it opened in a summer month. Yeah, it opened July 17th. I know the date for sure. I'm pretty sure the year was 89. So
yeah, see, I thought they showed it because it was the newest attraction. I didn't even think about the fact that, hey, Walt Disney World does not have this.
Well, I think they were really trying to differentiate the two resorts because they showed that, and then they showed the Matterhorn, which, of course, no other Disney park has. And that's kind of the two things that they showed him on in the park. He had his own, tour guide plaid person with him, and he kept calling her sweetheart, and I was like, okay, that's another thing that would not fly today. That would not work. But they end up at the parade, and he's very excited about this parade. And first of all, let's just say this was Disneyland's 35th anniversary Party Gras parade, which I did not see in person. This parade looked awesome. These floats with these giant, and I mean giant balloons that towered over the buildings of Main Street, USA. I want a parade like this again, or at least floats like this again.
They were really cool. It didn't even seem like a parade to me. It seemed more like a street party.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if Move It, Shake It in Walt Disney World could add giant inflatable Mickey Mouses, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I was kind of blown away by these floats. Like, and there was a giant, the classic characters, but also, who else got a balloon in 1990? Roger Rabbit, of course, had his own float. So there's that. And then, this Buster Poindexter has a magical costume transformation and performs a whole musical number and is ridiculously over the top. Knowing that this character is a character now makes it better, but I'm still like, who was watching this? Who was wanting this with this insane hair? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and I didn't get it. Like, it was Party Gras, but then the costumes had a Latin flair, and they started singing Hot, Hot, Hot.
So I think that was a song that he sang, and not originally. I think it was a cover, but I think it's one of the ones that were like a hit for either that character or maybe the New York Dolls. I'm not 100% sure on that. Somebody listening who's older is, I'm sure, screaming at us right now. But yeah.
Okay.
It was something. Weird. It was something. But I'm not going to lie. Seeing it made me want to go back in time and see that parade in person. Because I was like, this looks awesome.
Yeah. It had a lot of energy, a lot of fun colors. Obviously, the confetti blew everywhere at the end. It looked like fun. Just random.
Yeah, I loved it. So then we get back to Walt Disney World, and we get the Little Mermaid section, which, of course, one of the biggest hits they have at that moment in time. I've never gotten on board with these Sebastian and Flounder costumes. No, I agree.
Terrifying. The Flounder one especially, because he was, quote unquote, swimming around the street, which means you saw his feet like pitter patter.
That were like fins. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it was strange.
They
Even
should just
Ursula was kind of weird.
They should just have Flounder flopping around like a dead fish, rolling around Main Street.
Oh no! But it is kind of awkward seeing his little feet move, but they can't move at a full stride because he's constrained in his costume. So he's just like.
Yeah, it's like when you see Chip running around or Mrs. Potts. It's funny, but I never got on board with these like obnoxiously sized character costumes. And I saw one recently because they had Sebastian at 80s night at Disneyland, and I was like, gosh, I haven't seen that character in a long time, I feel like, for a meet and greet. And I don't know, these costumes of Sebastian and Flounder, it's like Wayne Szalinski got a hold of them, blew them up, and I just never got on board with that. As much as I love Wayne Szalinski, just never got on board with Sebastian could have eaten Ariel. She was sitting flopping right next to him.
Yes, I don't know. It is odd.
And then on the back, as you mentioned, is Ursula, which is kind of a fun, cool Ursula costume, just lounging in the back, but dancing to Under the Sea, which I thought was kind of weird.
That was weird, yes, because she was like smiling and still waving, but her elbows were very, very close to her body because the costume constrains her. So it's mostly just her forearms like flopping around as she tries to wave at people.
Throw her in an ocean, see how she'd do.
Exactly.
Now, this was the section, I gotta say, when the other dancers involved, I kind of felt like they were random costumes pulled from some other parade.
See, I didn't even notice.
Yeah, they didn't feel like they fit so much to me. Because I don't know if this float was like used in another parade during that time, or if it was used specifically for like just created for this TV special. I'm not sure how that worked, but it did feel a little bit thrown together, shall I say. But
yes, it was a generic float.
Well, a lot of them are generic, and we're getting, when we get to the Rescue Rangers, we'll talk about that, because I was just like, what am I looking at? But
okay.
Up next was Jungle Book. And did you not see King Louie like jump off the float? Like full on costumed King Louie. none of these characters are harnessed into the floats back in 1990. And he jumped down a couple of steps. He was up pretty high, especially for a costumed character, jumped down onto Main Street USA. And I was just like, oh my gosh, never in a million years would that be allowed today.
No, and for a good reason. I mean,
Absolutely.
Characters trip and fall all the time. If he trips and falls and the float keeps moving.
Yeah, it was bonkers. Go back and watch that moment. I can't believe you didn't have a reaction, because I was just like, oh, what just happened? It was crazy.
Right. I would have done the same thing. I would have tensed up.
But just watch any of the characters. Nobody's harnessed in. Like, times are different, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But heck, we got a Jungle Book float. I mean...
Yeah, and why? I mean, it's a classic, don't get me wrong, but there were a lot of Jungle Book characters.
It may have just been released on VHS or something. Maybe.
I buy that.
And then after that, we had Snow White with another very nice float. So this is where they're kind of tying into some of their classic things. Once again, not a ton of hits in the current time, so going back to the classics.
Yeah, I like this float. It had the water wheel on it.
Yeah, it is a nice float, and it's a large float as well. And of course, you got Snow White there with the Seven Dwarfs. It's nice. Fun times. But then, of course, we need to continue advertising our newest park, Disney-MGM Studios, and who else to do it but Howie Mandel, who obviously had a good relationship with Disney. He did a lot of these things with them. And he is kind of like Alan Thicke. I'm sure Howie Mandel would be terribly offended by the fact that I just compared him to Alan Thicke, but just a very off the cuff kind of sense of humor. To be honest, I don't love it on Howie Mandel. It's a little bit over the top for me. My sister Gina thinks it's hilarious, but she thinks anything over the top is hilarious. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think of him?
Yeah, first of all, Howie Mandel with a full head of hair, so it was a different time. I thought what he was doing was 30% funny. Like he actually did get a laugh from me a few times.
Yeah.
It does feel very I'm being really funny right now. Can you tell me, do you guys love me because I'm being really funny?
100% yes. I did love the older woman that sees him, notices him, is like, oh, you're so handsome in person. And he's just like, well, thank you. Just that made me laugh. But the best moment, oh, please, no, go. You had something to say.
Well, I was going to say my favorite line of his, but you go first because we might have the same one.
Mine's at Catastrophe Canyon, and it's not a line. So you'd say what you're going to...
So mine's at Catastrophe Canyon, except it's at the very, very end of the tram ride.
This might be the same thing. Okay, go ahead, do it.
Okay, well, I was going to say at the very, very end of the tram ride, he throws shade at the driver because the driver said, "Do we have anyone on vacation?" And a few people raised their hand, and Howie sarcastically said, "No, everyone lives in this tram." I was like, oh, burn.
Well, my favorite portion was after Catastrophe Canyon, where, of course, there's the explosions and the shaking and the floods and everything, and Howie Mandel being over the top and acting ridiculous. He looks at the kid in front of him, smacks him across the face, and goes, "Snap out of it."
Yes.
I was like, on what world are we in that Disney would allow a celebrity guest to smack a tourist? I mean, this did not feel like a staged group of people. It very much felt like Howie Mandel hopped on a tram, and perhaps he worked this out with this kid, but I don't know. The kid did not, he seemed surprised when Howie Mandel smacked his face and goes, "Snap out of it." I lost it at that point. I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah, that was good. I kind of enjoyed that whole tram ride because you're right. No one on that tram seemed like they had signed up to be on this little shtick with Howie Mandel. They were all like, "Well, I don't know what's happening."
Yeah, it was crazy. And then, of course, in this, the early days, a lot of people may not know this. Of course, it doesn't exist anymore, but the Streets of America, which is now Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, this was at a time when it was only used for the backlot tour. So you actually see the tram driving down the Streets of America as part of the tour, which is just some fun little nerdy Disney history right there for you. I always find that interesting. So anything else about Disney-MGM and Howie Mandel that you want to add?
No, we've had enough Howie. Let's move on.
Let's hop back to Magic Kingdom, where they start promoting Mickey's Starland. Of course, they're promoting a new show. They're Mickey's TV World, which I loved as a kid. Had the Gummy Bears and Rescue Rangers and DuckTales. And then that segues into a DuckTales section of the parade with Huey, Dewey, and Louie.
Yeah, I liked this. I did notice that they were in the famous gazebo float that is still used for a ton of Walt Disney World parades today. So shout out to that. But they had the guy obviously lip syncing the DuckTales theme song. I thought that was a nice touch.
Lip syncing with a microphone in hand. That's like the extra, do you think I'm stupid? Like, that always drives me crazy. I'm like, listen, I get it. Like, sound control in a parade environment would be miserable. So just be decent at your lip syncing job and don't give them a microphone. No, the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade is so guilty of this. I'm like, I don't believe any of this. Like, take the mics away. It drives me crazy. But in any case. So they had that little DuckTales section, which was nice. And then they have a Winnie the Pooh section with, once again, a child performer performing as young Christopher Robin.
Yeah, well, did you mention Jungle Book had Mowgli?
Oh, I don't even remember seeing Mowgli, to be honest. I was just so worried about King Louie jumping off the float. I missed It's crazy.
Yeah, Mowgli was there running around in his little red loincloth and his skin-colored bodysuit.
All right. Well, lots of kids in this parade. Then there's a Rescue Rangers float, which is great. I definitely grew up seeing the Rescue Rangers more in the parks than I ever did Chippendale. And I remember for the longest time, I was like, can we please get them out of these costumes? I just want traditional Chippendale. And now I'm like, whenever I see them as Rescue Rangers, I'm like, nostalgia. So, whatever. But in any case, this float was the most nondescript float I've ever seen in my entire life, even worse than the gazebo. It was like this wooden flatbed with some Easter eggs on it. And I was like, what is this? Did this look familiar to you at all? Have you ever seen this used for anything else?
Is it? Now I'm thinking about it. It might be, at least it might have been converted into the float that Clarabelle Cow rides on during the Christmas party with all the gingerbread. Ooh, I could be wrong about that, but it has the same general structure.
Okay, I don't know, but you may be right, because this one, I was really like, wow, you guys did not invest in this at all. Like, this is not good, but whatever. Chippendale Rescue Rangers got their own floats, so that's a win, I guess. So then, of course, another thing we need to promote in 1990 is the newly opened Typhoon Lagoon from 1989, June of 1989 that opened. And so MMC is back for a music video in there. This was, shown around the new water park.
Okay, don't judge me. I think this was my favorite section in the whole parade because it was very high energy. The editing was so cool. They sang that song that was later used in Jammin' Jungle Parade at Animal Kingdom, the Aiko, Aiko, hey now, Aiko, Aiko, Unday. And the editing was so quick and fast, and it just looked like they were having a blast at this water park. And I was like, I want to hang out with them at Typhoon Lagoon right now. That looks so fun.
I will say, having watched it, I will not say it was my favorite section. It certainly was not. But it did give me memories of like, gosh, I wanted to be friends with these people. Like, these Mouseketeers were so cool to me. And like you said, just looked like they had such a fun time. And I wouldn't disagree. They definitely look like they had a blast doing this. I'm glad you enjoyed that segment. That's fantastic. So when we get back to the parade, we have a whole Country Bears float, which is not that... I always find it interesting when we get characters in the park based on characters in attractions. Like, that always makes me really excited. And I know that you can see these walk-around characters a lot these days in Magic Kingdom, right?
I see them every single time I'm there, which surprises me.
Yeah, they seem kind of random, but it's also kind of cool that they're there. And they have their own float. Did you see this propeller choreography, as I'm calling it, during this segment?
The dancers out front?
Yeah.
What struck me about these dancers was I saw the crosses at first. I just saw wooden crosses on backs of people. And I'm like, is this some sort of Easter? Like, what are they doing? This is so inappropriate. And then I realized it was scarecrows that are attached to these wooden hitches. But I'm like, why would you shape it like that? Like, why couldn't it just be a beam?
I never thought of that. That's funny, but I guess Easter appropriate. So basically the gag with that is one of the performer's legs is the post and another one is the scarecrow leg. And then there's one free scarecrow leg that can they can do interesting dance moves and make it look like the performer's like hopping on the post and stuff because of the way the costumes are. But that's funny. I'd never thought about your whole little Jesus reference there. That's hilarious. But they did this really fun thing where they got in a circle of guys and girls. Every other was a guy and a girl. And then all the girls like flew up into the air while the guys spun really fast and it was kind of like this weird propeller anti-gravity dance move. And I was like, I've never seen this before, but I'm all for it. This is awesome.
Huh. I'll have to go back. Yeah. No, I was so distracted by the scarecrows and the country bears themselves.
Yeah, it was fun. Then we get to, after that is Cinderella. And first of all, some of the horses seemed a little bit angry. I don't know if you noticed, but they did not seem like they wanted to be, taking that carriage down the street.
Oh, no. I know, I missed that. But going back real quick, Clara Cluck is in that country bear section in the exact same float she is in during the Halloween parade at Magic Kingdom. It's like they didn't even change it. They just left it exactly the same with her up top.
Absolutely, 100%. So Easter or Halloween, it works for both. Why not? For that Cinderella coach, one gag through this entire parade was Regis is like, I'm going to be part of the parade. I want to be in the parade. Why am I here in the street? I need to be in the parade. So he finally gets in the parade. He's a coachman on Cinderella's float, being his annoying self. And I will say, did you happen to catch this? There was a moment where Regis Philbin was doing his man on the street thing, and one of the people looked like a young Jim Cummings to me. Of course, Jim Cummings, voice of Winnie the Pooh, Darkwing Duck. Did you see this?
No.
I have no idea whether or not I'm right about this, but I was like, is that Jim Cummings? It was very interesting to me.
Can you imagine? Huh, that'd be cool.
That'd be funny. So then, of course, we get toward the end of the parade, and there's Mr. and Mrs. Easter Bunny, of course, the stars of the holiday, and they're followed by the Azalea Trail Maids, who, of course, normally would be a part of a little pre-parade at Magic Kingdom this time of year. But it doesn't end with Mr. and Mrs. Easter Bunny. It ends with Mickey and Minnie. They steal their thunder, sadly.
Yeah. One thing I noticed about the Easter bunnies is that, those are the exact same costumes you meet today, those Easter bunnies. Whereas Mickey and Minnie, they've updated those costumes a lot since then. But the Easter bunnies, I'm like, yep, I met them last year, just like that.
Yeah, they have not changed through the years. They dust them off once a year and then put them away, and like, yeah, it'll work next year. But gosh, they used to bring out all the Disney bunnies here at Disneyland back when we had Big Thunder Ranch, which I mention every year, and I'll never get over the loss of our little Easter celebration back there because it was so much fun, and we had all the bunnies out. But in any case, that doesn't happen anymore. But that was the Walt Disney World Happy Easter Parade for 1990. Derek, I really want to know, what did you think of this? Will you go back and watch any other years because this was just so fascinating to you?
Maybe. I really was fascinated the entire time from start to finish. I was loving mostly just like the throwback of it all. So I don't know if maybe 1991 would be all that exciting because it's just a year later, but I could see myself jumping around to various years to see what they were promoting at that time.
Yeah, like I said, I grew up with these. I loved them. It honestly wasn't Easter without this for me. I loved it so much. I was heartbroken when they stopped doing it. And I don't know. The one thing I don't know is whether or not this was like something you could see in the park normally, or if it was really just done one time for televised purposes. I'm not sure on that. I kind of get the impression this was not like a month-long thing.
One thing I read was that it was filmed live, but they also taped the practice run through just in case it rained on the day of, and they just had to show the tape.
That's interesting. And yes, I do remember, I think Alan Thicke or Joan Lunden mentioned this was live, and it wasn't always live. Some years were, some years weren't. 1990, it definitely seemed like it was, the parade portions were live. I think toward the end, they were just like, I don't want to work on Easter, so like, let's just shoot this in advance, is kind of what it felt like. But that's smart that they would have taped the rehearsal, because sometimes you need that rent live. But yeah.
Yep.
So anything else you want to add about this before we get some trivia?
Only thank you for bringing this into my life.
Oh, you're so welcome. And I honestly hope anybody listening maybe got a few chuckles out of this and will go and check it out, especially if you've never seen it. I'm telling you, the Walt Disney World Happy Easter Parade was awesome. And it had a good long run, and I personally really wish it would come back. Like, I would give up the Christmas parade for them to bring this one back, just because there's so many Christmas TV offerings when that time of year comes around. You don't get Easter offerings, and this was just, I think that's part of the reason why I loved it so much, was there wasn't a ton of Easter content out there. And I've always loved Easter more than I think most people. I love the traditions of dyeing eggs and the parade and all that stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it would be great if they bring it back, especially since the one we watched was so much of its time. Like, even the set where Joan and Alan were sitting, they had those white wicker chairs and the stuffed bunny. Like, everything about it seemed like a 90s Sears photo shoot all set up for them. And I would love to see them bring it into the 21st century.
Hilarious. Alrighty, with that, let's get to some trivia, folks.
Do you know the answer? Get your brain gears churning and play along. It's trivia time.
Okay, Derek, do you want to hit me with a trivia question first, or shall I hit you?
Why don't you go?
Okay, so we were talking about the song Put On Your Sunday Clothes, which is from Hello, Dolly. And of course, we hear it on a musical loop on Main Street, USA year-round in the Disney Magic Kingdom parks. But I'm wondering, do you know the other place where you can hear Put On Your Sunday Clothes playing at Disneyland Resort?
Oh my. I thought you were going to say in a Disney property, and I was going to say Wall-E, because isn't that the film he watches?
Yeah, so maybe think about what you were thinking, and maybe that will help you answer this question.
At the Disneyland Resort?
Yes.
Pixar Pier?
Yes. It is part of a musical loop on Pixar Pier where you will hear Put On Your Sunday Clothes. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so you get it at both Disneyland and Disney California Adventure. You can hear versions of Hello, Dolly, in both parks, which I just find super, super interesting.
Okay, so here's my question for you. I went ahead to the 1999 special. I don't know if you remember this one very well, but this was the last time they did the live parade, the live special. And I want to know if you can name any of the hosts, and I'll give you a hint. There was a female host from a TGIF
no, unfortunately, no, wait. Yeah, you don't even have to tell me, because I know exactly who it is, because she drives me up the wall, and I did check this out a few years ago. I don't remember watching this as a kid, but I popped it on and I was like, really? They got Caroline Rhea to host the Walt Disney World Happy Easter Parade? Really? And that's all I can tell you. That's the only one I remember, but it bothered me tremendously.
Okay. Well, I was also going to see if you could name the boy band who performed all around Epcot.
Ooh, wait a second. 1999 boy band. If it were NSYNC, I would remember that. So I'm going to go with the Jonas Brothers.
Oh, no. Not quite to the Jonas Brothers yet. That was 20 years ago.
Was it Backstreet Boys?
It was 98 Degrees.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I like 98 Degrees.
And then...
Gosh, if it were NSYNC, that would be my favorite.
Yeah, no, you would have seen it if it was NSYNC. And then there was a female pop star who performed on the Streets of America.
Ooh, on the Streets of America, female pop star, 1999. It's too early for Britney, I think.
It is not too early.
Is it Britney Spears?
Yeah, she sang Baby One More Time.
Wow, I need to go back and watch 99 again. I might not have made it through because of the whole Caroline Rhea thing. I might have been too turned off by that. Apparently, I have strong opinions about her.
I guess. I mean, she's absolutely not my favorite at all. But, 99 Britney Spears did not offend me.
So I was obsessed with the Rosie O'Donnell show back during that time period. And when Rosie decided to leave the talk show, they gave it to Caroline Rhea. And I was like, are you kidding me? What on what earth do you think that Caroline Rhea is going to appease the Rosie O'Donnell show audience? It ain't happening. And guess what? It didn't happen. It didn't last very long at all. But in any case.
Yeah, it definitely flatlined after she took over.
Yeah. In any case, Derek, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was a lot of fun. I'm really happy you did this. I'm so happy I introduced this to you. And you have a fantastic Easter. And why don't you let folks know where they can find you?
Sure. Well, thanks again for having me, and thank you for introducing me to these. I didn't go to the parks until I was in college, so I do feel like there's a large part of my childhood that I missed out on. So I love going back and watching these things that if I had been in the know, I totally would have been obsessed with. So I'm glad to have the chance to do that now. But yes, I am a co-host of the Mad Chatters podcast, where you can sometimes hear Jeff DePauli. And yeah, we just talk about Disney happenings. We just have some fun, try to bring some joy into this world with our random, wacky segments. So go check out my co-host Jeremy and me over there, or you can follow me personally on Twitter and Instagram if you would like as well. Just go look up Derek Lewis, I guess, and I'm there.
I think it's at Derek Lou, right? On Twitter, at least.
Yeah, that's it.
Perfect. Well, Derek, thank you so much. I hope some of you decide to hop on over to YouTube and check out these TV specials that brought so much joy to me as a kid. If you haven't listened yet, be sure to check out this past Wednesday's episode, where we had the return of the Princess Pondering segment to discuss official Disney princess, Moana. And don't forget to tune into this upcoming Sunday's episode to hear the latest Disney news and the House of Mouse headlines. The easiest way to make sure you never miss an episode is to subscribe. And before we go, I want to give a huge thank you and shout out to Joshua Purvis, who has made the decision to join the DCTC community over at patreon.com/DisneyCTC. Joshua is now supporting the show and making sure that new episodes keep coming your way, plus getting bonuses along the way that you can't find anywhere else. April is a live stream Q&A month over on Patreon, so I look forward to seeing Joshua at the live stream. If you'd like to join us at the live stream or check out the other rewards available, simply visit patreon.com/DisneyCTC. That's patreon.com/DIZNEYCTC. Other than that, folks, have a magical day. Bye!
Thanks for listening to Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePauli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com.